You are listening to the Enormocast.
Alex Honnold once said that being in Black Diamond's solution harness feels like home. And that's either a ringing endorsement from one of the best or a desperate cry for help. The royal we here at the Enormocast is just going to assume it's the former, because the latter is quite complicated. And besides, we climb in a solution too. Not a sport harness or a trad harness, it's the one harness that stays in my pack for everything, because it's comfy and svelte without all the extra muckety-muck. I mean, really, what's a full-strength haul loop actually for? Anyone? Neither Smoot or Holly can tell you why you'd ever want 2,000 pounds hanging off your ass while you're climbing. So feel like you're home in a cleanly designed, comfortable solution harness from Black Diamond. And check out all their soft goods at blackdiamondequipment.com or your favorite retailer. Black Diamond, a proud sponsor of the Enormocast. If there's one thing the Italians understand about this world, it's that if something ain't baroque, don't fix it. And that's why Sportiva has faithfully kept its tried and true venerable classics in the line. The Mira, the Solution, and the Testarossa still outperform the latest flash-in-the-pan shoes out there. And they're also still built in a European monastery by silent septuagenarian craftsmen who may or may not be lawfully entitled to 6 smoke breaks a day. So when it comes to shoe performance, what's it going to be, the latest or the greatest? Personally, I'll go with the greatest every time. So check out both the latest and the greatest at Sportiva.com or your favorite local shop.
We gotta get
Listen, where are you playing in town? You playing here?
We're doing the Enormo Dome, whatever it is. It's terrific.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
a
the big
house. We
place,
sold
that
it out.
side of town. That's a
Very
big
nice.
place. You sold it out.
20,000
seats.
We really should.
The hell are you doing? I couldn't sleep. I'm checking the ropes. There was a frayed end on your rope, and I'm cutting it out.
Bad weather. Now or later, anytime is good time.
Today's show is brought to you by Black Diamond Equipment, with support from Maxim Ropes.
And the fine folks at La Sportiva. And don't forget our charter sponsor, Bonfire Coffee. Go to bonfirecoffee.com and enter Enorma at checkout for a discount on great coffee and to support the Enormocast.
And now back to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Enormocast. This is your host, Chris Kalous. It is June 14th, 2018, about 10:30 here in Colorado, and this is episode 152 of the Enormocast. The realization of my once stated dream interview in Rock and Ice magazine, I believe, is where I said that. My dream interview would be an interview with Max Jones and Mark Hudon. And guess what? I got it done. So this is literally the realization of a dream. Yeah, Max Jones, Mark Hudon, some awesome, amazing, sort of unsung free climbers from the late 70s. These guys made a very solid and very impressive for the day attempt at free climbing the Salate Wall in 1979. We talk about that, and they were just sort of a dynamic duo in the mold of Piana and Skinner, and hell, I'll just say it, Caldwell and Honnold. These guys were the proto duo. Anyway, that's what this one's about, and I think we hit a sweet spot for the Enormocast with this type of interview because, you know, one of the things I like to try to do is dig into the history and get some maybe a little bit less known names on here. And these guys, I mean, if you're an aficionado, if you're pretty steeped in the lore, especially in Yosemite, then you have an idea who these guys are. But, you know, if you have a passing interest, these guys' names might have skipped your purview because of being overshadowed by guys like Kauk or Bachar or even Jim Bridwell, who was a bit older than these guys. But they were right in the mix. Right in the mix as Randy Levitt was coming up. They're a little older than Randy. But, yeah, just that transition from aid walls to free climbing that really blew up in the 80s. These guys were right at the forefront of that. And they freed most of the Salathé when they tried it and didn't get freed entirely until 10 years later. And frankly, using tactics that these guys just didn't allow themselves to use, which we talk about in there. They were, they were in the paradigm of the 1970s with free climbing in terms of not hanging on routes, not trying routes over and over again, things that have become commonplace. So anyway, this is a good one. I'm excited about it. And it's a deep, climby one. We actually don't get away from climbing at all much in this one. But, we got to do those every once in a while instead of talking about all the feels and the inner demons and all that sort of business. Anyway, don't have much business to talk about here at the Enormocast. Lander's coming up. I actually haven't totally decided on going to Lander yet or not. Hopefully that has nothing to do with your decision to go up there because it's still an awesome festival. And, likely we're going to go up there, but I haven't made any solid plans for that. I don't have any official capacity up there this year, so right now it's just a matter of going up there to have a good time, and I'll see how that all works timing-wise. But I always like to give a shout-out to the climbing festival up there in Lander. I think it's, let me look it up here. Hold on a second. Okay, time travel. Yeah, I just instantly looked that up. It's the second weekend of July. So anyway, if you happen to be up there or if you're out on the road, it's worth a visit and might be there. So I'll let you know in the next coming episodes if we make those plans. All right, let's get to this interview that I'm so stoked on. Hope you guys are stoked on it too. Sit back and enjoy some history from two guys that are still doing it 40 years later, are still partnered up and doing walls together. Pretty awesome story. Max Jones and Mark Hudon. To me, and this goes way back, is that you guys are almost just too far ahead of your time in a way to me. Like technology almost hadn't caught up just quite enough, but whatever. But what you did was astounding in my opinion, and I think in a lot of climbing people's opinion. Not physically what you did, but that you had this vision to do it, to try it. What do you guys feel about that?
I mean, looking at it now, yeah, it does seem that way. And at the time, I mean, in mind, I think Mark and I were kind of thinking the same, but we were kind of in the mode of repeating routes, in particular Ray Jardine routes. And we couldn't figure out how this guy, we couldn't spend enough time in the valley to go hunt down all these little tiny things, the Phoenix and Hangdog and all this stuff. And then I remember one day looking at El Cap thinking, there is a lot of free climbing up there. There's a lot of pitches we could go do. We're doing these individual pitches on the ground. Why don't we just go do them up on El Cap when they're in plain view? So let's just go see what we can do. And I don't know that we were thinking that we could actually, okay, we're going to free it. We're that good. No, but we could do 10, 20 first ascents of individual pitches up there. And that's what we were kind of after. Plus, we just like being on El Cap.
Max and I, right away, we clicked. Our first route together was the nose. I hadn't known Max for 4 hours before we went on the nose. And we just did it. And we had no problems, and we just totally clicked. And we liked doing longer routes. We liked that sort of, rambling, climbing 511 as the 10th pitch of the day and being able to do that. And then, like Max said, we looked at El Cap and we went, look at all those pitches that might go free that would just be way good. And we didn't care that the whole route wasn't going to go free because we always saw it as taking a step. And even then, we didn't think of it as history. We just thought, we're going to go have fun. Uh-huh. We're going to go up on El Cap and we're going to go free climbing. I mean, there's got to be pitches, way up there that are going to be 510B and they're going to be freaking great. And we didn't care that it was earth-shattering or anything like that. We just wanted to go up there and just like what Max said, just go check it out. Just go up there and climb and ramble around.
And when you just said that you've met and the first thing you did was the nose, what year was that? When did you guys meet?
That was May of 1976.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say 76.
And you were just, you were just met in the valley. We're like,
yeah,
hey, man,
a friend of ours.
Let's set the scene of this.
I was a Donner Summit local living in Reno. And so just doing a bunch of routes up there. And then bunch of friends, we'd go down to Yosemite. And I remember the first day we were on the North Apron where I saw Mark, where I met him. Didn't Spencer introduce us?
Spencer
a friend of ours. Yeah. And we were at the North Apron and Middle Cathedral, and which were like scary freaking routes, you know.
Back, yeah.
5'12" climber, 5'9" kind of things. Like if you stayed on the route. And so I look up and I see Mark climbing this thing, Black Primo. And you had like your black headband, looked like this total badass. And these guys are going, you should climb with that guy. And I said, he's like way better than me. I'm not going to go climbing with that guy.
He's got a black headband.
Yeah, he's got a black
it's
headband.
Like you don't just like
I'm not going to mess
wear
with
a
people with black headbands. You know?
Yeah, no,
you got to earn that black headband. And then so somehow, you know, we met, and then we just started like doing a few. Well, I think it was. Then we met, and then I came walking into your camp and said, "Let's go do the nose."
I was going to go do D&B that day or the next day with a friend, and Max came in and said, "Hey, my buddies just crapped out on me on the nose. You said you want to do the nose. Do you want to do the nose?" And I said, "Sure." And we started talking, and we said, "Hey, well, let's go." You know, even in 76, there was sort of a lineup. And so we drove down there, and things looked good. And we went, "Hey, let's go jug the ropes to Hart or Sickle and spend the night up there and go." Because we had both climbed those pitches that season, and they weren't that good. There was permanent fixed ropes down from Sickle back then. And so we went off and got some gear, and we drove back, and we jugged up there and spent the night, and then climbed the route over the next 2.5 days.
Nice. Was this a full aid mode, or were you already thinking
we freed the stove legs, right. I think just before we went up there, you know, Kauk and those guys had done like Pancake Flake, so we did Pancake Flake, and that was like the most out there, coolest pitch ever. I remember, you know, doing the Great Roof and freeing right up to where it goes horizontal, and then I distinctly remember trying to get my fingers in underneath it and going, well, this is another lifetime for freeing this pitch, but I bet there's more to do up there. And beyond that, I can't remember what we did, but anything that Kauk and those guys freed, we freed. Yeah, we freed Boot Flake, the Boot, Pancake Flake. We freed everything up to like 511A, kind of. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you know, that's probably 11C up to the Great Roof and Pancake Flake and all that stuff. Yeah.
And just to put it in perspective, and I don't want to frame you guys as like dinosaurs, but we're talking about like 76 soats, pre-cams, Swamis, Swamis, Swami belts, and
no leg loops.
What kind of shoes were
EBs.
like in the day? Yeah,
EBs.
Pretty much everybody used those.
Yeah, that was the shoe.
Yeah, and so it's cool because you guys are setting at least within this small group, a scene that doesn't sound, when you were just talking about it, that much different than today. I mean, you even said, even then you had to like... Yeah, oh yeah. But then I wanted to put that in perspective, is that like, when you envision this, you don't envision, even leg loops, for Christ's sake. So, so you're up there on a big wall for 2.5 days in Swami belts, right? And hanging out in closest chairs. And,
so you kind of wanted to free climb.
Yeah.
Well, and then there was no Gore-Tex, there was no Polypro. Right. I mean, we were cotton painter's pants, down jackets.
No, the pictures are priceless of you guys in your painter's pants.
And I have that photo. And Max and his mom made the haul bag. I mean, you couldn't go buy haul bags.
Right.
You couldn't just go buy a haul bag.
So it's like a sewn canvas bag.
Yeah.
With loops on it and stuff. Yeah, like seatbelt.
I think I even sewed my own hammock. Like a single point suspension hammock.
That's right, you did.
And so you guys weren't even in portal ledges. Although you can ledge out on, you can ledge on.
We were on ledges every night.
Awesome.
It wasn't too bad.
Right. So let's individualize we're going to come back to this, but let's individualize, what got you to the valley to begin with. Like we don't have to go back to like the thing where we talk about how you started climbing, but, give me this, maybe a run up of what, like, Mark, how did you end up in the black headband?
I started climbing when I was 16 years old in 1972 in New Hampshire.
Oh, okay.
And I remember Mountain 16 had the article by Doug Scott about climbing the Salthay with Peter Habler. And I mean, I had no idea where Yosemite was. And they had a picture of El Capitan, and I thought that was probably the only cliff in the whole park. I mean, I had no concept that there was a valley or anything. And so I thought, wow, Yosemite, holy moly. And then a couple of years later, a guy asked me to go out to go to Yosemite. I was 18 years old as a senior in high school. So I took 6 weeks off of my senior high school year to go out to Yosemite. I had never been west of Washington, D.C., and I went to Yosemite and drove into the valley at dusk and looked at El Cap, and I went, oh yeah, I'm not climbing that thing.
Right.
And 4 weeks later, I climbed the South Bay Wall.
Nice.
And so then I went back to New Hampshire for the last 3 weeks of my senior year, graduated.
So wait, you just pieced out on 6 weeks like high school at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I walked in on the very first day of the year in September,
right.
and I walked into my student advisor's office, right. And I said, I'm taking 6 weeks off. I'll do any makeup any teacher wants, and if they don't want to give me any makeup, just change the class. And the guy said, I can't do that. And I said, you have to. It's your job. and he wouldn't do it, so I changed advisors.
Okay.
And then and I did all this makeup, and 2 weeks before I was going to leave, I was now 18 years old. 2 weeks before I was going to leave, the principal called me into his office, and he said, I don't know if I can let you go. And I said, I'm 18 years old. If you don't let me go, I'll just quit school. I told him that I had done all this extra work and that I would just quit school and I would make it up in summer school, and whether he wanted to let me go or not was sort of irrelevant.
Right.
And so he called me in like 3 days before I was going to leave, and he said, oh yeah, the superintendent of school said you could go. And I went, oh yeah, great, thanks.
Thanks. Like, it matters. Like, I
I
already sewed my haul bag, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and so then, this is the start of a life of a climbing bum. I came back and I spent a year in college in New Hampshire, majoring in art, but minoring in drinking and rock climbing. Mm-hmm. And so I figured I was doing so poorly with the majoring in art part that I should just cut right to the chase.
With the drinking and rock climbing.
Move out west
right.
and go drinking and rock climbing. And so that was pretty much what I've done my whole life.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. That's like the perfect, I mean, because that little story and especially the high school thing, I think it tells a lot about it, like who you were at that age, and like, not going to let whatever problem, stop you from doing this thing that you wanted to do.
Well, and I was there, and really, 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 I mean, you're really blessed, I think, if you can find this or if this happens in your life. But, I was 18 years old, and I did not consider myself a 5'9" climber when I went up on the South Bay. And I was the free climber of the team. So, I mean, I free climbed, all of it is, like you have to. And I got to the top, and I was just going, yay, I did it. And that really, really, really changed my life. Mm-hmm. I mean, I distinctly remember, that changed the focus of my life, and that led me right here, right now, today. That set the tone of my life.
Right.
And I wanted a casual life. I wanted to rock climb. I wanted to do these outdoor things. And that's what I did.
Nice.
It worked out. I mean,
it worked out.
It's totally wild. I mean, I tell everybody I could die tomorrow and I'm the happiest guy in the world.
All right.
Yeah, I've done absolutely everything.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that was that moment. Like I've done.
That was it.
Yeah.
I mean,
cool. That's great. You can, it's kind of probably an interesting perspective to have. Like that was when it happened. Like that's when the crossroad split.
Yeah. Totally.
And I stopped futzing around with like worrying about other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I came back for the senior thing, and they were all like prom and this, and I'm going, you guys are out of your mind. I mean, high school is like total bullshit.
Yeah,
this
that's really interesting because I
freaking ridiculous.
I think the one that I remember distinctly with this is Colin Haley, who up in the Northwest, and he was same thing in high school, just going on these missions on the weekend, and that's why I asked him, like, well, what did you think when you got back to school and we're like looking around all these people who just like hung out and partied or whatever all weekend? He's like, yeah, I couldn't relate. I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, this is weird. And I'm like shell shocked from being out all night in a storm. And so that's interesting. So, Max, you have any way to run us up to how you ended up in the moment there?
Well, probably not as dramatic as that, but kind of same thing. I'd come back from like every spare minute in high school was climbing. And I think I started when I was like 13 in junior high school, which is, then you're kind of this oddball.
And where were you?
In Reno.
Okay.
Yeah. And so every minute I could, and getting out of school, going up to, Donner, and climbing was so close, I guess I didn't have to abandon ship.
Right.
To go. But I remember, coming back on the weekends, a buddy and I, he talked me in, and this was like in 70, I was in high school, so it must have been 73 or 4 to go try the nose. And so we battled it up. We spent a night in butt bags just below Dolt Tower, dropped a pack, total full-on epic, came down the next day. But I kind of do remember that, getting back to school the next weekend, and, what is this? This is like useless. But I was, a little too mainstream to like bail on it.
Right.
I kind of had to follow through, but man, every second I could get out of there, I would. And, grew up ski racing, rock climbing, kind of same thing. And Yosemite was close, so it wasn't kind of this exotic place, and knew kind of where it was and what was going on. But we kept climbing what we thought was kind of cool stuff up at Donner, and then just gradually, Yosemite was just, almost a local crag, just 5 hours away.
Right.
So we, started kind of tinkering around down there. I remember the first time walking up to El Cap, kind of the same thing, is looking at it going, wow, that's big.
And what was, so you bailed off the nose?
Yeah.
And what was the first time you climbed it then?
I was just honestly trying to remember.
It was the nose.
It was the nose with you, yeah. Because then I did the Salathé with Eric after that.
Right.
Is that kind of?
Yeah.
No.
I was just looking
no
around.
Lights.
That's why I was looking around.
We're
Like, it's gonna get dark.
Yeah, we're gonna explode.
Well, let's just keep going, and then I'll deal with it at some point.
But yeah, it was the nose.
Yeah.
Because I had tried it with that friend of mine.
Right, and it was my second route, and your first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, we were El Cap newbies. That's for damn sure.
And that was the time we were on the nose, and then our across the street neighbor was flying his plane looking for us, and he was like flying below us in the valley.
That's right.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and I got pictures of the plane from like way above, because we were way farther up than he thought we would be.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
So, okay, cool. That catches us up to where we were talking about you guys climbing the nose and being free climbers. And I mean, we think about the 70s there. That was, you guys are younger than the Bird.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
But contemporary with Kauk and those guys?
Yeah.
Pretty much?
Pretty much the same age as Ron.
Yeah. Ron is, you're the same age as Ron. Yeah. And then Backer, I think, was younger than Ron even.
It's 79, then on the Salathé I was, 22?
That's awesome. So you guys are, so in 76 then, you're
Max was
youngsters.
18 and I was 20.
Yeah. Nice.
I know, it was great.
Yeah, and we were heading up for when we went up on the Salathé. I mean, we were racking up in the parking lot, and Chenard comes into the parking lot, and he walks over to us and says, "You guys think you can free climb that?" And it was like, well, here's
maybe,
Chenard.
Sir.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know, sir.
Yeah, we're going to go find out, sir.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
Nice. Was he being like just...
No, he was like truly curious and
curious,
truly nice,
okay.
and he had his Camp 4 beater Toyota,
right?
And like truly curious, like no air at all. It was really cool.
So this is like, you guys are right in the middle of where people are free climbing.
Yeah.
I mean, at least this group of like-minded individuals.
That's when it was happening.
Right.
Yeah. The no one was thinking about free climbing El Cap. I mean, Jardine was starting to work on the west face, and we were on the head wall of the Salathé, and him and Bill were walking along the base, and they're yelling up to us, and we're yelling down to them, go, go, go. So yeah, there was that, but really, 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 there was no one else thinking about free climbing El Cap.
Like from top to bottom.
Yeah.
Every move kind
it
of
just,
thing.
I mean, things were inching that way as far as bigger and bigger things being done. And everybody kind of had their little, semi-secret project, and we'd hear about something, and we thought kind of the best ascents to do were like second and third ascents because all the work was done and it was still a cool route. We weren't up there, with, those guys trying to do the stuff on Middle Cathedral, but we got to do a lot of second ascents that were pretty neat.
Were you guys permanently in the valley, coming and going? What else was going on in your lives?
Max tried to go to school for a couple of years, but I was a bum.
Yeah, and I couldn't stand it when he was doing routes, so then I kind of bailed from school.
Right. Yeah, hearing about your buddy,
So
on your postcards
wait a
about
minute.
awesome stuff he's doing.
Yeah.
But no, once our first season together there was like the fall of 77, was it?
Yeah, something like that.
And we, and then we really just started hammering out routes.
And we were pretty much there like 2 months in the spring, 2 months in the fall.
Yeah.
The traditional April, May, September, October. And summer, maybe at home doing odd jobs or climbing in the meadows quite a bit.
Right.
Actually did a lot of climbing in the meadows. And then all winter was working and working out.
Nice.
We had kind of a pretty strict regime.
I ended up living with Max and his family for 2 years.
Oh, okay.
So in this room that was like an eighth the size of this.
We're sitting in this little
kind of that back converted closet.
But and so like I'm really good friends with all Max's family. I mean, his sister Lynn, she's my sister, and I call her that and all that. But Max and I, we just totally clicked, and we just had this thing where Max had his strengths as far as a climber. I had my strengths. And we would just put together routes based on that. We would say, okay, well, we want to go do this. This looks like a run out pitch. Okay, I'll lead that. This looks like a death or, a hard finger pitch. Max, that's your pitch.
And that's where we came up with these lists of routes.
Yeah.
And we had these like hit lists, and it was just off the top. I've still got one of them at home, and I'm looking at this thing going, holy cow. It's like we climbed a lot of stuff.
Right.
But it was just like we'd hear about them and people would do them or, the guidebooks or, you know how you find out about routes. But we had these notebooks full of routes. So we would get to the valley and instead of kind of the standard, what do you want to do today? I don't know. Let's go to the calf. Let's get breakfast. Yeah, it's noon. We can't do much. Let's go boulder a little bit. Like that wasn't us. Here's the next route. We're going.
We show up and we had a calendar of routes. And we would say, okay, we're going to do this route. We're going to take 2 days rest. We're going to hike in, sleep at the base of this, do that, hike over here. I mean, we had a calendar with all figured in with what we were going to do when. And at the end of the season, we would have ticked all the routes.
Right.
Whereas everyone else, like Max just said, they would have spent a lot of time in the calf drinking coffee and then bouldering.
Right.
So we just bang out these routes. People used to laugh at us that we had this calendar, like we had an appointment book of routes.
Right, yeah, like businessmen or whatever.
But yeah, we would go do routes.
Yeah.
So...
And bouldering wasn't an option because we were terrible at bouldering. So, compared to those guys, God, we'd watch Kauk and Bachar do Midnight Lightning every night, and it's just that's impossible.
Right.
So we didn't want any part of that because we were no good at it.
Yeah. Again, I have this. I sort of have built this little mythology around you guys a little bit, and I didn't start this way, but you got in touch with me, Mark, that you guys were going to be here together, and I've been super stoked about it for weeks, and or a couple of weeks since we started talking, and you guys are known to pretty aficionado historian climbers, but it seems like there was all this other stuff going around, and meanwhile you were like just churning it out, kind of almost behind the scenes, or. I mean, we know about Bachar, we know about Kauk, and those guys are like supremely talented, but it seems like you guys were right getting stuff done. Or is it just because you were repeating stuff, you think?
Well, we were repeating stuff, but we were, okay, we did like the crucifix with an early ascent of the crucifix, and yet we free climbed the last two pitches at 511 plus. And so... I mean, those used to be aid pitches, and so that left only the 4 aid moves at the very bottom that Peter Croft went back and free climbed. But that was sort of our. There are a lot of cool pitches up there that could be free climbed. Those guys, we were always be up on those routes going, why isn't Bachar up here? Why isn't Kauk up here? Those guys are so much better than us. But yet they didn't have this, I'm not going to call it a vision, but they didn't have this idea. I mean, we just wanted to go climb routes, and we wanted to go climb pitches, and we wanted to go climb long things. And we'd say, okay, so what about this? Yeah, do you think you can free climb that? Okay, yeah, let's go out there and let's give this a try. And we'd free climb it. When we went to free climb Mount Watkins, we just did that same exact thing. We went, wow, look at this pitch. 5.9 A2, inch and a half crack. Okay, we can probably jam that. All right, then it gets over here. And okay, well, so we just go, all right, so we can probably do this whole route with 50 feet of aid, and so we would just go do it. And we just had a different attitude than everybody else.
And you weren't worried about or doing any sort of method of trying to go whittle those hard moves down. And that wasn't really a style yet anyway, was it?
No, and
you weren't allowed to do that.
Yeah, and I kind of joked that, we weren't maybe allowed, or we weren't creative enough to figure it out. And it almost seems like a lot of big steps in areas, especially Yosemite, came from outsiders that really didn't care what the status quo was or what people would think. They figured the only way to do this was to okay, we got to change our tactics a little bit to do it, which was probably a reason, that's all the big steps in Yosemite seem to happen that way. And I just kind of think, we weren't real creative, or we were trying to fit in, or that just wasn't done. It was, here's how you do it. You free this pitch, you go from the bottom, you go to the anchor and see what happens.
Right.
And to go back and actively work on them, some of the things we look back at now is God, why didn't we go do that? 4 moves on the crucifix is all we didn't free. Why didn't we go back and do that?
Sure.
That was in our capability at the time.
Yeah, but it's we're
still
talking about an era where Jardine was breaking these rules and getting a lot of hell for it in terms of hang dogging and hanging on routes and trying to do moves over and over again and stuff like that.
And we were doing second ascents of all his routes.
Right.
And we felt we were doing the first real ascent.
Right, because he had worked.
Because he had he'd hung on them, for God's sake.
And then also we work them too.
Yeah.
But
we had rules, and come to find out, we're all getting laughed at by him because that's how things are done now. We were doing the yo-yo stuff, but we had rules where we had to lead the crux, and if one of us got above the crux and the other one didn't, we had to pull the rope down until the other one got there. So if we were both, we had our own little
hodgepodge of what you thought were accepted.
I mean, there's things. Completely breaking out of the paradigm and creating a new paradigm is a big thing.
Sure.
But we inched out of the paradigm. We started the change of a paradigm, I believe. We weren't, we're still drawn back with the being ragged on by the crew, by our peers, but yet we wanted to push it. So, we took a few little steps, which that's, I think that's just fine. Creating a brand new paradigm, well, that's Robbins, that's Bridwell.
Right. Right.
In my opinion, Bridwell is the last of the greats.
Right.
There's not going to be anybody that's great after Bridwell, because the paradigm is too big right now to make any giant
right,
leaps
where
forward.
Everything's just black and white to technicolor kind of change.
So we started to expand, we started to shift, we started to break out of the paradigm, and I think other people took steps on that. But we were captives of the paradigm,
for sure. Well, it's hard not to be. You've got this peer group and everybody's scrutinizing what you're doing.
Well, and we're doing the rostrum and trying to free the whole thing. We'd gone in. Jardine had freed the roof on the top, so we went and freed the roof on the top. So then we were figuring, let's go be the first to do the whole thing, top to bottom. Well, I remember getting up to the last pitch and looking over, and there's Bachar sitting across the way with binoculars. Watching,
making sure,
and we didn't pull it off. I mean, I was this close,
right?
But
you could feel him. You could feel him looking at you.
And and why we should have gone back to do it. I don't know why, but or gone down and pulled the ropes and tried it again on that last pitch. But whatever. But it was a neat time, and I remember feeling with Bachar and Kauk, it's God, if they got up there, because what they could boulder, I couldn't figure out why they weren't doing stuff way harder, but we figured on any crags or big cliffs, we were as good as they were.
Right.
Or we just tried harder or stuck to it or something.
Right.
But not bouldering.
Right.
And I did, go climbing to those guys a little bit, and then I was came to the realization, it's like, oh, I can crack climb as good as these guys. No
Right.
problem.
Right.
I go, and then you didn't do bouldering on cliffs because you would die because the ethic was not to put any bolts in. So
Right.
you can't do that.
So I started framing this around this Salathé ascent, which is something that you're well known for, this attempt. And you said what year was it? It was May of 1979?
May of 79,
okay.
yeah.
So does this feel like something you guys were on the list?
It was May of 78.
It was May of 78?
Nope. 79. It was 79. Okay.
I think it was 79.
It was 79. Yeah.
I think my
It was
memory
79.
of it.
Yeah, that's what
reading
I'm thinking.
about
It's 79.
Because we went to the Gunks in 78. We
Right.
hadn't done the Salathé yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not all about Yosemite. Where else were you guys climbing?
Well, we took took a road trip.
We would go to Colorado every August
Okay.
and climb around Colorado, hung out with Leonard Coyne and the South Platte, climbed up Boulder and the Diamond and that kind of stuff.
We did the route in the Black Canyon, too.
We climbed the Black Canyon. One year we went up to Wyoming and Needles of South Dakota and
Devil's Tower.
Devil's Tower.
Mm-hmm.
And then one year we went out to the Gunks, the Gunks, New Hampshire, all that kind of stuff for a couple months.
Do you remember what you climbed on the Diamond?
D7.
You did
To the
D7.
third ascent.
Nice. The free climbed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And again, like 78, 77, 78?
That
Somewhere right
was
there.
earlier, yeah.
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 Awesome. I mean, that's just super cool because it seems like there was, and actually to this day, it seems like these California climbers, they're really California based, and like, it feels like that's where things went down, and Yosemite was just this constant focal point.
Yeah.
And so to sort of, maybe it was because you guys were from the two coasts that you were like, let's go check out what's in the middle.
We were just, it all burns down to we just like to go climbing. Mm-hmm. We just wanted to go climb stuff. We toured around the Black Canyon with Leonard Coyne,
That must have been interesting.
Somehow we, I mean, the guy he's a total whack job.
Right.
He's laugh.
Right.
Oh yeah. We climbed the Black Canyon. We did the cruise, like an early ascent. We did just we wanted to. Well, you know what? Okay. So, Henry Barber, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Well, okay, he had traveled around and
he was
climbed a bunch.
the original like world traveler American climber. Yeah.
So that was sort of what was required, to be a well-rounded climber, was to go climb around. And so that's what we...
Yeah, and read what he did, and you get kind of inspired, like, wow, that's kind of... It was like eye-opening, to see the ascents that he did. And where he was going and where he was traveling, and it's like he could apply, his talent and climb well everywhere. It was really cool.
Yeah.
And it was just fun. We want to go have fun.
Right. So, when we're talking about the gear and how alien it would be nowadays for someone to go up on El Cap without cams or, and it always seems like every moment, with that perspective, it seems like maybe every moment was like death-defying. But I mean, did you guys have like close calls ever in these periods where you were climbing all the time, or you just kind of had it in hand, or do you remember feeling like it was ever like, wow, we're really getting out there on like the edge? And
not
it seems like it was like a pleasure cruise in a lot of ways.
Well,
yeah.
Just like people now, and how easy it is to place a cam, there's a bit of, talent involved of recognizing a good placement and doing it quickly. And we had the same thing, with nuts and stuff. We could put the stuff in. On the Salathé, we did have some cams.
Okay.
And that Jardine gave us. And they had just come out, and he actually, or somebody, built us some offsets, specifically for the Enduro corner.
Okay.
But before that, we didn't have any. Like, I think Mark's is still the only lead of the Phoenix on nuts.
I know.
That's awesome.
I know.
So yeah.
I know. I've led. This is so funny. I've led 513 with a 2-inch waistband with hexes and EBs.
That's ridiculous.
I know, and that.
I mean, because like you just said.
I mean, and Max,
Meg's
did it too, of
Right.
course. But that,
Yeah, with tails and all the things that we went through.
Right.
With that, we never had them.
Right, Tales of Power.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys did a ton of that too.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. See, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Separate Reality, Tales, Hang Dog.
You guys were killing it.
It was neat. We tried to do the second ascent of Half Dome free because, we couldn't let it stand that some Colorado climbers came in and nabbed it.
Right, because it was Jim Erickson and Art Higbee.
So we went in one...
Art Higbee?
Yeah, we did their variation at the bottom, and they added like 4 or 511 pitches, but we thought that was they were junky pitches. Mm-hmm. And besides, like, how far can you climb up the cliff and not be on the main face and then traverse into it and say you did it?
Right.
It's like, this is kind of ridiculous. So I think on that attempt, we bailed, and then
it rained.
And then we came back and essentially decided, well, we're not going to free the whole thing. Let's go do the zigzags. We'll do the second ascent of the zigzags.
Right.
And so we had just freed quarter domes, and Mark's brother was there, and he hiked to the base of Half Dome with us, met us on top of quarter domes. We hiked down. We gave him our shoes. He hiked them to the top. We didn't even have shoes, one rope, and we got to Big Sandy, and his brother hollers in and goes, "Are you guys going to hurry to the top? You've been on this thing like not quite 3 hours, from the base."
Right.
So we had like simul-climbed the whole thing, which was no plan.
And this was strict free climbing ethics too.
Right.
Yeah.
The leader, both guys were climbing free climbing.
Right.
Real live free climbing.
Well, and we were simul-climbing.
Right.
I had done, that was my first big wall when I was like 16 or something, and it was an epic then. But I remember climbing up going, God, I thought I should have gotten to the first belay. And then I looked down and I thought, well, damn it, Hudon forgot to tie in.
But he just started climbing.
And he just started climbing.
Right.
So it's like, oh, shit, I better put something in.
Right.
This is like 2.5 pitches up.
Uh-huh.
And so then we got to Big Sandy, and then we free climbed the zigzags, which were just freaking awesome pitches. And that was that kind of like that same theme of, wow, that we know those are really good, so let's go do those. Mm-hmm. So we went up and took our time and free climbed those and still did the thing in like about 5.5 hours. Mm-hmm. So it was and it was really fun to have, struggled over 4 days to do that as my first wall and come back and do it in 5 hours was like amazing.
Right.
And it was such a good time, but that was like, we'd kind of hear things, get a direction, and go. And then about this time, it started to solidify that, we could probably do a lot of the Salathé free, like a lot of it. Mm-hmm. So let's just kind of start aiming toward that.
Right.
But we did Half Dome, Watkins, everything but the bolt ladders and the pendulums free. Quarter domes free. We did something on, or Middle Earth but that was kind of a mixed aid and free route up on Middle Cathedral.
We did Chenard Herbert, Crucifix, Astroman, Rostrum.
Yeah, I think what was our ascent of note on Astroman? We were the first people to do it that weren't part of the first ascent.
Oh, okay. Oh, right.
Because those three did it, then Kauk did it all, then Bachar did it all, or vice versa, something like that.
Right.
And so we were the fourth or fifth ascent or something, but it didn't involve any of those guys.
Right.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like you're the cleanup crew.
With hexes.
Well, you
pretty
come in and
much.
just like are putting the work in.
Or we kind of felt sometimes,
it's super cool,
especially in the meadows, where it was like, okay, let's see if we can sandbag these guys now. Like the locals. Mm-hmm. Like we put up this route, like we did Stoner's Highway, and what's the other one over on Middle that Kevin Worrell did, and the kind of scary routes that those guys would go put up.
Space Dabble?
Yeah, and Space Babble, and like they'd send us on it, like, we'll get these guys now. It's like, damn, that didn't work.
Right. You'd be like, it's no big deal.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, because we'd like sandbag and reverse.
Right. You'd pull it Honnold. No big deal.
Yeah, and same thing up in the meadows of all their the scary routes. But we thought it was the best because we didn't have to put the bolts in.
Right.
They did all the work. They did all the scary stuff. We just had to find the bolts.
Right.
So it was really awesome.
I mean, even now, we're both tacticians. Like when we were, like I work at Max's bike shop, and when we have to solve a problem, we both just sit down and go, okay, if we do this, we do that, then that happens. Okay, well, what happens when this happens? Okay, so we both just figure it out. And so that was something that really clicked with Max and I back then. Even like the very first thing on the nose, we had really good tactics in our head and we were able to communicate that real well. So, you know, like we would say, okay, well, what about half dome? Okay, well, I want to go do the stove legs. Okay, well, I don't want to spend too much time on it. Okay, well, how about if we do it real fast? Okay, well, let's do it like this, you know, and then we would bounce it back and forth, and we'd come up with this thing. Okay, well, we're going to speed climb it, and, you know, we're going to simul these pitches, and we'll get there, and we'll do this, and we'll do this, and we'll do that. So we always had this really good level of communication of what we wanted to do. Like Max said, we went and did South Face of Watkins. Well, he had done the route before, and so he said, okay, well, we could free climb this, we could free climb that, and do this, do this, do this. And so we would just put together this whole thing.
Well, and it sounds like you trusted each other. So, like, if he said, we can free climb this, you were like, okay.
Yeah, totally.
Then he's right about that.
Totally.
And, So it's like a realization, you know, or what would be, you know, just like calling forth what's going to happen and then making it happen.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
And it was always, I mean, you know, I told everybody in my life that Max was the best climbing partner I ever had in my life.
Right.
I mean, Max, I never saw him shake. He never backed off the pitch. He never piston moaned. You know, here's the rack, on belay, see you later, he's done.
Right.
You know, and I feel it was the same way with me too. So it was just, we rambled and we just enjoyed it and had fun. You know, like you were talking about dealing with hexes and all that kind of stuff to set up anchors. At that same level, he's a technician, I'm a technician. We would figure that out, and things were always, you know, we're always good and fine.
Yeah, and it's like, I know you kind of, you know, you were saying, well, if you learn to use cams, it's the same, but it's not the same. It takes a very distinct eye, and cams are faster. They're definitely easier to understand where they go. I mean, placing nuts is an art form, and it sounds like maybe all your climbers of that era did, but it just sounds like you climbing that fast, building anchors out of that stuff, and you guys had to be really pretty good at it.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't put that many cams in, but I still remember, like I could nuts, but you could, you just see it.
Right.
You know, you just like, oh,
right,
that's there.
Yeah.
It's there. Of course it's there. And it's a little wider range now, but, you know, I find myself blowing it with cams more now than, you know, I used to back then, but I don't climb here as much.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm a big fan, and I get I get shit from certain climbing partners because I place too many nuts in this day and age, because they're just like, it's a waste of time. And I'm like, yeah, but it's awesome and it works, and I don't think I spend that much more time on it, but yeah, like climbing in the black, like people are just like, why are we bringing all these nuts? I'm like, because that's what I do. So deal with it. And you're going to have to clean them. Yeah. But anyway, it's cool. And I think it's like a lost art. But again, putting all this in perspective, like all this climbing, you know, again, there's none of these routes you've mentioned, not a single one, even as like a challenge would most people. I'm like, yeah, why don't you try doing it without any cams? They'd be like, that's suicide. Like, it's going to be, you're going to die up there without cams, you know? And it's just like, no, we'll just keep doing these sorts of things. So,
you know, kind of one of the sketchiest ones I remember doing back then was Freestone, you know, up by the falls. Mm-hmm. And I went up there, and I can't remember who, but I backed off.
You were with Bill.
Or with Bill.
Because I did it with Augie.
No, yeah, with Bill Price. And so he wanted me to lead the sketchy face pitch, and I backed off it, and then we went back a couple weeks later and then did it, and it was kind of like, oh yeah, well, why didn't I do it this way?
Right.
But and that was a pretty good, you know, it was kind of like Mark and I, where, you know, okay, I'll do the face, but man, you're doing that off width up there, you know, so at least, and that was kind of the way Mark and I work with different strengths. I mean, there are many pitches where it's like, thank God he led this one, man.
Right.
You know, this is like...
Well, what would you protect a big off with like that with? Tubes?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Or tube shocks. Yeah.
Right.
Or big tubes that you'd like knock out when you buy them.
Right.
Well, no, and I remember Bill Price and I went through a season in the Valley, and we just did all the classic off-wits to learn how to do them. Right. And then all of a sudden it was like, no big deal, you just do them. Right. And now they scare me to death. But back then it was like, no big deal.
Wow. Yeah, just it feels like rolling thunder. Like you guys just, kept building skills. And so let's go back to this. You were about to mention, we went on another tangent, which was fantastic, but like you said, okay, and then we started thinking about like, why not free the Salate, or we could free most of the Salate. This particular ascent, like I said, it stands out from 1979, which we finally figured out. Yeah, so talk a little bit about that.
We'd both done it, and it's like it was always touted as like the cleanest line on the cliff, or the most natural line.
Okay.
And rest days we would go do free blast.
Right.
When we were resting, in between days of working on whatever we were working on. And that seemed like no big deal to do free blast.
Right.
We did do free blast as a rest day.
Yeah.
Working on the Phoenix.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And so, because you weren't on
Did you
your
ever
hands.
like actually rest on a rest day, like where you wouldn't do anything?
Probably.
I don't think so.
I think you don't understand what the word rest means.
Yeah, that was like, it wasn't on our hands, it was on our feet.
I don't think it means what you think it means.
So then it was the next logical thing is, you get up into the heart and you're looking up going, man, it's all cracks. It's all there.
Right.
So we should be able to do a bunch of it. And then that's where it kind of became a goal as far as we could do a lot of this. I don't know that I ever had it in my head that we thought we could actually free it all, but I figured we could get it really close.
Mm-hmm.
Just from memory, there was, I don't remember ever even thinking of like wrapping into the head wall or doing anything.
Geez.
No, wouldn't you have gotten?
We would have been.
Yeah, crucified.
Yeah,
they would have been fist fights or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
Which was, and that was kind of the deal of the day, and still heading up into some of those pitches, looking back at it, and it was pretty cool. Some of the best days of my climbing career, anyway.
So so just to even now, it's a free climb, but it's also a big part of the free rider, because that basically manages to skip what are now the 513 pitches, and so it is primarily like 512 and under, other than I think 2 pitches or 3, depending on if you split the head wall up. What did you guys get done on it in terms of do you remember in terms of freeing of pitches? Which parts didn't go?
I think we said all but 300 feet.
Yeah, if even that. And a bit of it was wet that went free in the sewer pitch.
Okay.
And then like we didn't do the monster, although I've got a hand-drawn topo that I drew afterwards that said, hey, what about this? And pointed to the monster because we looked around to it and couldn't do the pitch like where the Teflon corner is. But I noted where the Teflon corner was, like we should look at that.
Right.
And never went back at anything.
Well, that's the original line there is still... That
is the original is the boulder problem.
The boulder problem's to the right of the original.
Yeah, no, the original line hasn't been freed yet.
Yeah.
No,
There's just that one little section of steep pins, and I always wonder, part of it is that there's just so many goddamn pins stuck in it, right?
Now it must be said. Okay, so we could not vary off the Salate wall. Having done the monster, that would not have been the Salate wall.
Right.
Having done the Teflon, that would not have been the Salate wall. So back to that paradigm kind of thing. So Max was working on the what is now 513C pitch above the ear,
right?
And he went up there, and it was just Max that day climbed 513.
Right.
We didn't realize it at the time, but he free climbed all that pitch except for the last 4 aid moves.
Right.
And it was just like, I wasn't climbing as well that whole season. And so Max was really the guy.
Right.
And I followed that pitch and I fell a couple times and it was just like, oh my God, this is just freaky hard. It was just crazy hard.
Right. But what he had done was like crazy hard.
Yeah, no, I mean, just do that whole, go ahead and do that whole pitch with 4 aid moves at the very end, and that's what it is. I mean, it's got to be 13B, but we were just going out there and doing what we could do.
And we were going anchor to anchor is what our deal was.
Yeah. And it was lead and follow.
Mm-hmm, and lead and follow,
Not the second in Jumar.
In multiple days.
days, yeah.
We were camping.
Do you remember how long you were up there?
I think it was 4 days. 4 days from Hart.
Because didn't we haul to Hart, come down, and then climb to it? We didn't haul the slabs, I don't think.
No, we climbed Free Blast, and then we came back.
That's right.
And then we hauled, and we spent the night on like Hollow Flake.
Sure. Yeah, totally.
You know,
Yeah.
But again, it was that same thing that, you know, we looked at the topo and we said, okay, look at here. All this is, you know, the rack for this pitch is 3 inches. So definitely we can free climb that. You know? And then it gets down to 1.5 inches. Okay, we can free climb that, you know. And so we would look at the topo and really analyze, oh yeah, okay, well, if we can free climb all the way up to here and then it pinches out to knife blades. Okay, we won't be able to free climb that. No big deal. It's 10 feet, whatever. You know, so we did that for the whole route, and we went, all right, let's go. You know, and we just kept going.
Yeah, and after that, you know, when we camped on the Spire, I mean, that evening was kind of one of the best memories of climbing I ever had. Was I led the pitch off the Spire and freed that, and then Mark went to Sulatois, and it was just like we were free climbing. And like we had our camp. We could easy wrap in camp. We just went free climbing in the middle of this awesome face.
We're on El Cap,
cool.
Just free climbing with the free climbing rack, no haul bag because the haul bag was down there. And I mean that was like so
just cragging up there, off of the Spire, essentially.
Yeah, and these are all first free ascents of these pitches.
Right, and that the pitch off the Spire is amazing. It's like that total splitter 511 crag. Yeah.
And and even then we were sitting there going, can you believe it? Can you believe we're doing this? Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, we were just going, holy shit, this is so freaking cool.
Right.
I mean, you know, then there at the moment, we were just going, wow, this is so fucking
And then it's,
nuts.
you know, then the next day, isn't that leads, then there's the aid pitch, and then the enduro corner.
Right.
And so I got the enduro corner.
Right.
And, which was just unreal. You know, and that's where, you know, blindly placing those newfangled cams.
Right, the offsets.
Yeah. And then lie backing away, you know, up into the belay, and these 2 guys were there. And I remember, like, pulling into it, like, way run out. But calm, not pumped, nothing. And this guy goes, he's got an aider in his hand, and he's leaning over, and he's dangling it to me. And it's like, get that out of my way.
Right.
He goes, what can I do for you? What can I do? Get your shit out of the way. And so it's like, no, move your haul bags out of the way. And I'm like in a lie back, you know, top of the pitch, because I had to clip the chains to call it free.
Yeah, it's serious business.
If I didn't clip the chains.
They weren't chains then.
Or whatever. Yeah. I thought they may have been then.
No.
Well, clip the slings.
Whatever.
So the guy was like pulling on him, and I come right up next to him. His haul bags are right here. Clip in, pull up some rope, clip in. I said, okay, good.
Right.
Now I've done that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that pitch went free on your guys' ascent.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 12 plus.
Yeah.
Well, from that mid-anchor.
Still.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I think that's the first 512 pitch on El Cap.
Yeah.
It's no joke.
Yeah. We got there. Those guys passed us. We were at Block Ledge, and those guys passed us, and we said, you guys better get ahead of us because we're going to be working these next pitches, and we're not going to be able to let you pass. And so they climbed, and they came back down. And so the next day, they jugged their lines, and we hung out a little bit. And then we jugged our lines, and we were at Sulatois, and I led the pitch off Sulatois. And the guy looks down, and he goes, I don't think you're going to be able to free climb this one. And Max and I just looked at each other and laughed.
Nice.
You know, and we just go, whatever. And then Max did it.
Nice.
You know, and the guy, his leader was asking for slack the whole time. Slack, give me slack.
Like
because he was watching Max. I mean, it's hilarious.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, of course he was watching you. That's awesome. Yeah. So then you're there at that's the roof pitch.
The roof pitch, yeah.
Yeah.
So Mark takes off on the roof pitch. And I mean, that's like wild. And did we like decide right then maybe to use leg loops? Because we thought that would be kind of sketchy.
We probably thought that we were going to start aiding on the head wall eventually.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I went out and I started to do this like foot dangling hand traverse.
Yeah.
And
on
like
El Cap.
Yeah.
Way the hell up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like I said, I wasn't climbing that well. And so then I started aiding. Mm-hmm. And I think Max free climbed it a little bit further.
I think got my feet over the lip or something. And then it was like this, well, I guess we should have gone to Veta Vu to learn how to do flares to figure this one out.
Right.
And then the next one, so we get up there, and then the next one's the main headwall
Right.
pitch, and it's like we're sitting there going, "Wow, this is." And we had a little portaledge too, that we were going to camp right there and work on the headwall.
Right.
Yeah.
We had a portaledge.
Okay.
Grimici.
Okay.
Portaledge.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys were getting soft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I take off on that pitch and fall off it. It's
Right.
like shit. So lower back down to the belay, 'cause you got to lower back down to the belay.
And so now this is 1979,
Mm-hmm.
and Max is up there falling on the head wall of the Salthay.
Sure.
Now, free climbing the head wall of the Salthay right now is like, oh yeah, right, my grandmother did that and all this kind of stuff.
Not quite. But yeah.
But
No,
this is
I get
but
it,
this
yeah.
is back in this is not too many years after the leader does not fall.
Sure.
Kind of thing. And so Max is up there falling on the head
Taking
wall
whippers.
of the Salthay, and we're just going.
I took 2.
We're almost like this is Twilight Zone.
Sure.
And here we are up there.
Go ahead.
That was like one of those days for me. And then so I take off the next pitch or that same pitch to do it again, get over the little roof, place something there, and then just said, I got to go. There's a hand jam up there. I can get the hand jam. If I get the hand jam, I got it. And so I remember reaching for the hand jam off a finger stack and hand pops. I remember it hitting me in the chest and way run out. Biggest fall that I've ever taken. And it was just like, and boom. And it's like, oh, well, shit. And then it's like, God damn, I don't want to try this again.
Uh-huh.
We don't have enough rope. I can't lower back down. Oh. Shit. So I think what I did is swung in, climbed back up to that piece. It was one of Jardine's rigid friends, and only 2 cams held me, which I was pretty impressed. I said, wow, these things are actually pretty good. And so hung there. And I remember going back up, getting the hand jam, hanging there, and then climbing into the belay. So, did the pitch with 2 hangs, I guess. And was kind of bummed because I knew I was on. And it's like, shit, we should fucking hang out here because I could do this.
Right.
And just didn't. And then, because you're there, all of a sudden, like the world comes rushing in and you're there. Mm-hmm. And so then Mark leads the next pitch, and I was on the belay going, I should try to follow this because I could do this. I could totally do this this finger crack. And I was like, and we had come from Sulatois. And so I was like pulling off the belay going, God, I don't know if my fingers can take this anymore. And then I'll just follow it on aid. Mm-hmm. So didn't do any of that pitch. But pretty much that was a significant amount of aid climbing. But it was like one of those where, to this day, probably kicking myself for, we should have gone back. We should have stayed there, wrapped down, done those pitches the next day.
Right.
But
in terms of the rules, or at least the things you guys were holding sacred at the moment, what about another ground up ascent? Did the moment pass in terms of just like trying to go up there again, or was it back to this thing of like, oh, that's what we meant, that's what our goal was to go up there?
I think it was again that the being encased in that paradigm.
Sure.
The chronology, we got a little bit screwed up before. Yeah. That was the spring of 79. In the fall of 79 was when we did walk-ins, quarter domes, half dome, Chenard Herbert.
Oh, okay.
Crucifix, Rostrum, and then some other long.
Yeah, we
route.
should have added it in that.
So
we were rolling.
So we learned so much that fall. That
you're like, God damn it!
That if we had gone back,
go back and
that fall, we would have done so much better.
And but I think too in that the way we were thinking then was that it wasn't like, oh man, if we go spend like 3 weeks on this, we could do it. It was like, I remember thinking, another 4 or 5 years of climbing like we did that fall, then I think we could pull this off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we just didn't have 4 or 5 more years. And it was kind of like, and that was the thinking. It wasn't like, okay, let's go spend 45 days on the thing.
Right.
And we can do this and wrap in and do this.
Right, which is what happened.
Right. But 8 or 10 years later. Yeah. So, things had changed a little bit more where that wasn't, out of the realm of acceptability.
Right, because it was 87, 88?
I think 88.
Yeah, the Paul and Todd.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. I mean, they went up there for ages, which was still, even 10 years later, was, got people's undies in a bundle about their tactics.
Right. And I mean, even in 79, don't forget, working a route was still, even just that, going back day after day, was still controversial.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Right. Wow, that's so, I don't know, I'm like, this is like one of the climbiest shows we've done, but it's so fucking great. I mean, I'm like listening to you guys tell these stories, and I haven't actually done that. I've never been on the Headwall because I've only skipped it, but I've been up there, and I know what you're talking about with like the feeling of free climbing up there. But to be, doing it when it was just this new idea, this new thing, this like excitement. I mean, it's really captivating what you guys are talking about.
And it was so cool because I was just in the headspace of, I'm not going to hit anything. So
that's so great. I
mean, it out. It doesn't matter.
Modern.
I was totally so at home. I don't think I've ever been that at home at a cliff as that day.
Right.
Of just total comfort.
Right.
Right then, that was the most out there pitch ever free climbed.
Right.
Ever attempted to be free climbed.
Right.
I mean, just barring none, black and white, that was the pitch.
Right.
I mean, it's just...
It still is. I mean, it's still an incredible thing.
It's still an amazing
place.
But, and that's why, and I'm just saying, we were at the edge of that paradigm. We were sort of like trying to move out of that paradigm, what we're trying to do there.
Right. You can feel the John Backer's binoculars.
Well, I think I remember hearing that the rescue telescopes were on us up there.
Yeah.
I'm almost positive I remember hearing that somewhere.
Well, people knew.
Yeah.
And so, and they knew,
they knew we were heading up there,
and what you guys were up to.
Yeah,
so
you
why
weren't
wouldn't
exactly
they
hiding.
Sit and smoke weed in the meadow and watch you guys?
Right.
What else is there to do?
Yeah.
Let's go bouldering.
Yeah,
let's go bouldering.
They're all
You can only boulder for so long.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so what do you, when you guys came, you did that, and we're talking about a little, you're saying, I could have kicked myself and everything else, but I'm sure, in this place you guys were of like, we're freeing pitches, we're up there having this great time. I mean, you certainly topped out, and that was a great ascent, and we did a great thing and had a good time. And I mean, you didn't top out thinking like, oh, we should go back or I'm bummed. I mean,
I was way happy with what we did.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it was pretty amazing.
So you come back to the valley floor
awesome.
and talk about it. What was the sort of reception of what you done, or were you not the kind of guys that came down and...
I don't remember what...
I don't either.
What did we do after that?
Well, then you went...
I mean, that season.
I think that kind of ended the season because that was kind of late May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Went home, went climbing at Donner.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't really remember that much of... And, we weren't... I don't know. I don't remember, we didn't really hang around and socialize with all those guys. Yeah, kind of anticlimactic. I remember getting up there going, that was cool. That was awesome. That was great. I can't believe more people aren't up here.
Right.
And then when things finally started, when it finally got freed and when other things started to get freed, it's like, it's about damn time you guys figured this out.
Right.
Everybody's so much better. Why aren't you up there? And finally, I guess they are.
Well, it's interesting, though, that you're talking about these paradigm limits in a lot of ways, right? Mm-hmm. And I've been taught, since I've been up there free climbing a little bit back, it was like the decade ago already now. And it's a trope of the show. It's funny, I talk about the free rider all the time. But,
and then we got a drink, right?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, but when I came down for that, first of all, I was like, look, I'm just a chump. Like, I'm not a professional climber. I climb a lot, but I'm also just the guy that climbs. And I went up there and we climbed it. And then I also was like, you know what, why? We have this paradigm at the moment, or a lot of people have this paradigm, that if you can't have a shot at freeing every move, then there's no reason to go up there.
Right.
And I came down like, if you're a 5'11" climber, just go climb all but the few bits of it.
Right.
And you're going to have, and exactly the same thing.
Exactly.
Like, you're going to have this amazing time and never step in aiders, because the bits you can't free, you just pull through them.
Right.
Keep your climbing shoes on, and exactly that. And that's what I would try to sell. I'm like, imagine climbing 5'11", 2,000 feet off the ground with a free climbing rack.
Yeah.
Not all this shit that everybody goes up there with. But to this day, it's like people aid the stove legs, and they aid, and it's like, go up there and free, I don't know if you coined this or if it was applied to what you were doing, the free as can be.
That was in our article.
Yeah. And it's like that also is sort of lost on people right now in a way that I find is a little bit limiting in this other direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, you can climb, if you're a solid 5'11" trad climber, especially if you can off with, you can climb all but a few meters of that thing. If you skip the head wall.
Yeah.
And it's like, why not do that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Instead of like,
what a cool place to be.
Yeah. So I just thought of that now, like this paradigm problem is always kind of like, most of us, for some reason, we're kind of wired to stay on the rails, so to speak.
And originally, Max and I going to free climb El Cap, that was one of the things we were battling against, because the other guys in the valley were going, no, we're not going to go try to free climb it because we can't free climb the whole thing.
Right. So I guess it was the same.
And we were going, whatever, we're going to go up there and free climb what we can and have fun.
Right.
I mean, heck, right now, I don't know if I'm ever going to get to do it, but I do want to go back and try to do freerider as free as I can do it.
Right.
I've been up there a couple times, but I want to finish it.
88, 87, Todd and Paul freed that thing. What happened, what were you guys' careers after, when we get into the early 80s, and when did you kind of drift out of the valley then? Or were you guys still, how long did it last? How long did this, like I called it rolling thunder, kind of last?
For me, the end of the 79, the fall of 79 was sort of the end of, of my thing there. I just, I was a little bit tired of being a bum living out of a backpack, and so I sort of got a job, and I had sort of, I'd done a lot, and I wanted to go do something else, and I just sort of wanted to relax or something, I wanted to sort of have stuff. And so I got a job and rented a house and, learned how to be a carpenter and did that. And then for me personally, a few years later, I mid 80s was the whole bolt wars and fist fights and tires being slashed and stuff. And I thought that was pretty crappy. So I just quit climbing and took up windsurfing and moved to Hood River and took up rock climbing again as a sport career, and then took up climbing again as sort of my current career, my wall career.
Right.
Doing things.
Yeah, that's just I think it's a pretty normal story. You're just like, I'm like getting a little old.
Yeah.
Well, kind of
let's move this on.
Yeah, and like you were asking about the Salothe and like what it would take, and we were thinking, 5 more years of climbing like this, we'd have a real shot. And it's kind of same thing. It's like, I kind of done a lot. I can't see myself doing this kind of, and kind of same thing. Got interested in other things. I got married in 82, and started running a cross country ski area. Started actually somewhere in there. Found a mountain bike. Raced professionally mountain bikes for a dozen years, which was pretty cool. Got to travel the world on somebody else's dime, and that was pretty neat. And saw some neat places, and then somewhere in the middle of it, got back into climbing, and Cave Rock was going off when it was like, wow, sticky shoes, and you can hang on bolts, and you can practice moves, and this is like unreal.
That happened to both of us.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty common.
It's
really a pretty
fun.
Normal thing to have happen.
Climbed harder things than I ever did before, and then got out of it again. And then the next time I touched rock was 16 years later on the first pitch of South Seas.
Yeah.
With this, aid climbing for a week on a wall.
Right.
And just, kicked my butt. But, it was so cool to be up there.
Because you guys went and did that together, right?
Yeah. Mark kind of got me out of retirement. Let's go do this.
2011?
Yeah, I think so.
2000 spring?
Yeah.
Spring 2011.
Nice.
I had climbed a couple walls because I had just decided I wanted to do it again because I loved it so much.
Right.
And because Max and I had, aside from having done all this free climbing, we would do aid walls.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we did a bunch of aid walls back then.
We did like the 5th ascent of Mescalito. We went up on the 4th ascent of the PO. I dropped a rock on my finger, so we failed on that. We did an early ascent of the Zodiac.
Yeah, and then I did like Tissac, like
Yeah.
6th or 7th ascent of Tissac. Levitt's first wall did that with me.
Oh, right on.
And which was really funny. He was awesome to have up there. And
he kind of, his approach or mindset or whatever, when you were talking about tacticians, he jumped into my head as another guy in that mode of like, what are the logistics that have to be set up for me to get this free climbed or to get this.
Yeah.
And, and I sort of imagine him on the calendar kind of crew of like, I'm here to get these things done.
Yeah. Well, he figured out off-widthing, and we learned a little bit from him kind of late, and how to do the really hard off-widths. And he was awesome. He figured that stuff out.
Right. So, so you guys are doing aid walls too, and
yeah, all pins too.
Yeah. yeah.
We were helping create free climbs.
Yeah, exactly.
We helped on the Dawn wall.
Right. Yeah, we did our part.
Yeah. So, did you guys have your sort of ear to the ground about what was going on, or were you guys just in terms of like when it got around to the Salathé time, or had you just checked out as far as like what was going on in Yosemite without you, so to speak?
By the time 88 happened, I had, I was never really reading the magazines. And then someone gave me that one.
Right.
And I read it and I cried.
I think you called me or something.
Yeah, did I?
I think so, yeah, that it got pre-climbed. And I was kind of half paying attention.
Right.
And then it's like, wow. And it took me a while to realize, I kind of put it in the frame of how we worked on the wall, is how they did it. And then, like you say, people were giving them grief for spending so much time on it. I was pretty impressed that they were willing to work that much at it. I thought that was pretty cool.
Right.
And then that was kind of it was neat that they pulled it off. And I've always kind of tried to sort of pay attention, especially Yosemite stuff, because it's kind of close.
Well, I guess I was sort of curious if you knew, because there's your, historically speaking, I know about you guys' ascent, and then it feels historically that nobody went up there until those guys did. Do you know if there was other people messing around up there in between?
The fall of 79, Stefan Glowitz.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Because it's in his book. It's in his Rocks Around the World book.
And he did the only thing new that he did, although he didn't know that we had gone up there.
Okay.
So he thought he was doing all this stuff. So he did the down climb to Hollow Flake.
Oh, okay.
And that was really... And then it was, if you read it and you know what's happening, he claims to have done all this stuff,
right? But
he didn't know that we had already done it. But basically, he fails on the wall because he's a shitty big wall climber,
right?
Is really,
yeah. That continues to this day with like, some anyway, really, really, really strong climbers that individually the pitches would be no problem, that the rest of it kicks the shit out of them.
Yeah.
Right.
And they by the time they get to wherever, they're wrecked.
There was a team from Europe that went on Freerider last fall that they're going on Freerider and they fail on the Hollow Flake.
Oh, wow.
Because they can't climb 5.9 with no protection.
Right. But they're probably like 14 or 13
right. But it's just, it's so interesting that they think Freerider 512, 512, 512.
Right.
And they fail on unprotected 5.9.
Right.
And that's such a wild pitch, because I remember back, telling people that friends of mine at Donna that were going to do it and said, don't take any gear. Nothing fits in it. You won't put anything in. And they said, but I'll be just too freaked out. It's like, just don't take anything. It'll just get in your way.
Right.
Take nothing for that pitch.
Right.
And it was such a whoa, you can't do that.
No, I took a giant cam and waved it at the crack a few times.
See now, those two stories. I mean, back in the day, I remember Max and I were going to go up on Crucifix with friends, and there was only a number 4. The number 4 was the biggest one, and it was barely going to fit. And I think we had one, and there was this guy orbiting us as we were racking, and he's talking, and he's bugging Max, and Max is really calm and relaxed and everything, and the guy goes, well, how are you going to protect this? And Max looks at him and goes, with my ability. You know? And so really, 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 in the 70s, our ability was self-based. And now, really, I'm sorry to say, ability is not self-based. Ability is gear-based.
Right.
So just look at those guys that I just described. They're you know, some Europeans coming in to do this, the free rider, 512, 512, 512, and they fail on a 5.9 pitch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, certainly those guys can climb 5.9, but their ability is just so based on having protection.
Right.
That that a large part of their ability is gear based. It's not self based.
Mm-hmm.
And so we could climb that stuff. I mean, I didn't consider myself a 5.9 climber in 1974, and I led that pitch,
right,
you know, with no pro. I mean, just like Chuck Pratt did. You know, he had a 4-inch bong that didn't work. You know, so I mean, that was the way it was then, and so we had that advantage. We could just look at something and go, not can we get protection, is can our ability, you know, can we climb it,
right,
and protect it.
Yeah, I mean, it's I just you're talking about me. I mean, in a lot of ways, like, because it's
well, that's the generation, I think.
Yeah, and because I'm just saying, like, yeah, it is really like there's a second gap. I mean, I know for a fact that I can climb 5.9 and there's no way I'm going to fall off of it. But if I'm presented with that, I mean, I have this big second guess of like, well, what if I can't? What if this time I can't? There's no gear. And you guys could be just like, I can climb 5.9 and I'm going to go ahead and climb 5.9 and regardless of what, and I don't fall off 5.9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when Max was free climbing the enduro corner on the South A,
right,
it wasn't Bomber Pro.
Right.
I mean, the cams weren't that good.
Right.
You know, he was clipping into RERPs and copperheads and all that kind of that fixed garbage that was there back then. But yet, you know, there's no way people would lead it with that gear now.
Right.
You know, I mean, the thing's all cleaned out, and the cams are much more advanced and stuff like that. I mean, so to go back and free climb it with the gear Max had then is like...
No, it's a proud achievement. I mean, and then, you know, going back to your frickin' putting nuts in the Phoenix. It's just like we're talking about, it's not even the same thing. I mean, it's just rad, you know? Like, that's super rad. But since it was the second...
It was the only thing, we didn't know.
Cool. Yeah. It's just so fun to hear, like, I really like this, what you keep telling me, Mark, is this, like, we just wanted to climb these things and wanted to have fun on them. And, like, you know, because I interview so many professional climbers that, you know, what their achievements are their profession. And so it's, like, important that it was the first female this, or it was important it was the first, you know, free climb of this, or the first of the grade, or the first... And, you know, it's just nice, like, you guys were just, we'll go and climb because that's what we want to do. You know? And there was no option. You guys weren't professional climbers because there was nobody around signing up professional climbers for anything, really.
Well, when I remember starting to feel like I could climb well, at least on my local crag, but my driving force was I wanted to be able to go to any climbing area anywhere and look at the coolest line and be able to do it.
Right.
And just no matter what, just I wanted to be as good just so I could go do that. That looks cool. I want to go do it.
Okay.
And so, I got to get a little better to do that at all these cliffs.
Right. That's awesome.
And that was it.
So you had this resurgence doing wall climb. You guys did together. And I remember when we first met a couple of years ago, you telling me how hard it was and how it wrecked you.
Yeah.
Pretty hard. But where is climbing now in you guys' lives? I have some idea, but let's talk about it on here. Where does it fit now? I mean, it's what, 79? Do the math. 20 years or 40 years later?
40? Getting close, right?
89.
Oh, yeah, 39.
Sorry, buddy.
You're just like 40, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
You were like, look, I was.
We were free climbing the South A, and you were peeing in diapers.
No, not quite. I was born in 71, so
All right, okay.
I hope I was out of my diapers by the time I was 8. But yeah, I'm 47, so it was 39 years ago. Sorry, Mark.
Crazy.
That's crazy, right? Yeah. So anyway, what are we talking about these days for climbing with you guys? Just, not like what you're climbing, but what does it mean to you now in your lives?
Good question. Lately, I've just been a gym climber because it's been that kind of winter, and we've got a great new gym in Reno. And so, but what I get out of it is it's kind of like those few moments, in day-to-day life where you just get that, you hear people talk about it, just that little bit of focus, you forget about everything. And I'm lately just trying to be I'm just fixated on technique stuff. Just how, I'm not going to I've always tried to be like really, really strong at stuff. Well, that's, now kids are so freaking strong. It's unbelievable. So it's like I'm just working on that. You can always work on technique. And whether it's indoors, outdoors, I'm just kind of trying to go with kind of what's convenient. I like the fitness that you get out of climbing. But just the mind space it gets me to. I really like it. I don't know if it just brings me back to the early days, but I need it in little, if it's, 10 minutes a week, it's great. That's what I look for. That's what I search for.
And staying with that or with this, I mean, I'm forcing you guys, not forcing, you volunteered, but, I'm giving you this opportunity to talk about yourselves. And obviously you wouldn't just like chew somebody's ear in a bar about all this stuff or whatever. So I'm giving you this opportunity, but, you talked a minute ago about these moments on El Cap, still being, these pinnacle great days. And, in your life, do you draw inspiration from those days still, or from, I'm forcing you to think back on them all, but what do they mean to you in terms of that era of your lives that sounded just so magical and so special to you, at least in this moment that you're talking about it?
I mean, definitely some of the most memorable. And I mean, maybe you spend your life like trying to get that feeling again, just that. And I know everybody that's climbed for a while has it, that weightless feeling, everything, you're making good decisions, everything's going good. You're not thinking about anything, you're not overthinking. And you get those things, whether you're mountain biking or those little just moments of clarity, whatever that is. And you just you keep chasing those in whatever, venue you need to chase them in, I guess. And sure, I mean, climbing is like some of the more memorable, deals, but even some of the recent El Cap routes, I mean, God, free climbing those pitches on top of the AO. I mean, that was unbelievable. I mean, just the spot you're in and, run out 5'9" stuff after a big aid wall. And I mean, just a magic place up there.
Right.
I mean, you're just looking at where you are and it's like, holy cow, it's so cool that, your bit of skill and talent and just wanting to, something draws you there. You get to be in that place again. You get to experience that thing again. And, and what's fun is I can get that, outdoors in the gym. It's kind of really cool to try to let yourself experience that all the time. Even on, like around here or some of the hairy mountain bike trails, you absolutely get that focus. If not, you find out quick.
Right. There's no rope to keep you off.
No, there's no belay on mountain biking. It's scary.
Right. It totally is. No, I don't. That's why I don't do it. People always like, why are you mountain biking? I'm like, I'm scared of it. They're like, you're a climber. I'm like, no. That's a whole different ballgame.
You're looking at the dirt all the time.
Yeah. Mark, you've come back into it pretty hardcore. I mean, we've met in the last couple of years. You've been out on the road climbing is when we've met.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's it go? Where does it live in your brain these days?
I've been retired for the last 3 years. I live in a van, and so I am truly a bum.
You regressed or progressed?
No, I
backwards. Yeah. Progressed backwards. How's that? That's maybe a better way to put it.
And I mean, I don't know. I was thinking about this today. I was just like, I am still as psyched about climbing today as when I started, in 1972. You and I go climbing. I am the first guy to have my pack ready to go. I am the first guy up the trail. I want you to hurry the fuck up so that we can go climbing. I mean, right now, today, tomorrow. I just enjoy the movement. I enjoy the being out there with the people. in different sport climbing, you can do different levels of things. And also, I mean, I hope I've matured that I don't have to go climb 5'11". I can go climb 5'8" with a fun person and have a great old time, I don't know. I just love it. Like, Max says, you get the same thing mountain biking, like I kite down in Mexico and I do all this, it's just that being outdoors, doing it. Max and I bivvying on El Cap with the bats and the moon coming out, and then he and I mean, I feel so grateful to have Max as a partner back then. And heck, now, we've done 5 El Cap routes in the last 5 or 6 years. And so we're sort of doing it again.
It's like a goddamn buddy movie. That's so awesome. I mean, because I heard that, and it's part of it was near when I started this podcast, and part of the thing, and I just interrupt you. I apologize. Yeah, that's right. And Max, you saw it, and I think Mark, you might have seen it in some, and maybe it was in Rock and Ice. It was a question was like, "What's your dream interview?" And I was like,
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, I want to interview those guys. I want to interview Jones and Hudon. Like, that's, and I think probably a lot of people read that and were like, no Sharma, no. Yeah, I was like, no, those guys are the dudes I want to talk to. Yeah. But because I had heard through the grapevine, that's like, oh yeah, those guys climb space, or they climb, it was right around then.
South Seas.
Yeah, or South Seas rather. Yeah, I keep saying space, but it was South Seas. But, and so that was my like, I'm like, that's so fucking cool that they're like, back in the saddle, and I just like, and when you're talking about the two of you guys sitting on a wall on a ledge, it's just like the greatest fucking thing. You guys can't see me, but I'm just like the biggest smile on my face.
Well, we're I mean, now, we're sitting on the portaledge, we're talking about our daughters, we're talking about our businesses, Max is talking about training, I'm telling him about coffee, I mean, we're old guys now, we're so happy to be doing it at the level we're doing it. I mean, again, we don't care. Right. We're up there doing it. If it takes us, I mean, okay, sure, we did like Reticent, which is supposed to be hard, and but we did it. But we didn't do it because to prove anything. We did it just because we wanted to go do it.
Right.
I mean, and we had a great freaking time on it. We tried to do Zodiac in a day.
Right.
My good friend Shane Lempe soloed Zodiac in 19 hours.
Right.
So, Max and I were going,
we could do that.
We're freaking badass. He's just a kid.
He's just a kid.
We could do it in 19 hours. I mean, what the fuck? Well, 30 hours later, we got to the top and, we were laughing that, here we are. We slept more comfortably on it 40 years ago than we did that night.
Yeah, I remember Peanut Ledge being a lot bigger.
Some of it's fallen off. Yeah. Must have, right? Must have fallen off.
And we're laughing. We're just going, haven't we learned anything in the last 40 years?
Right.
But yet here we are. We're still doing it. And it's just, to me, I mean, it's the greatest gift of my life that I get to climb El Cap with Max.
Yeah, that's really awesome. That is really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're not exactly free climbing like a chump right now either. I mean, you climbed Tag Your Time, didn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I was happy with that.
Yeah, that's a badass route, man.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Well, I don't know, you guys, it's been a real pleasure, man, and I'm so glad that you made this happen. That we got to sit down together, the three of us, because that's been literally, like I said, it was like my dream interview, like 5 years ago it's been. And I've met you guys separately, and we've sort of had it in the ether of doing this, and man, I'm just so excited that we got to sit down. Yeah. And is there any, you want to tell these young kids any last piece of advice about how to approach climbing?
Have fun.
Yeah, just have fun. I actually, one little story.
Okay.
That I kind of one of the fun ones back east, and we were in Cathedral Ledge, and so this kind of just do what you want, go out and have some fun. Well, Mark was asking about this route on I think Women in Love on Cathedral Ledge, and we were talking to Ed Webster, and Mark was asking, hey, you think that'll go free? No, that'll never go free. So that afternoon, late in the afternoon, we look over there. Henry Barber and Ed Webster are on it, free climbing it. Because they knew we were in town.
Right.
And it's like, those sons of bitches.
Right.
So, get your stuff, let's go. So, as it was getting dark on the last pitch, I was behind Ed as they were doing the first ascent, hitting his foot with my hand. Come on, Ed. I need that hold. Come on, Ed. Get off this thing. Come on. And leading it right behind him for the second ascent.
Right on.
Just because we wanted to.
Right.
So I'll leave it with that.
And we went to the bar and we drank beer with those guys.
Yeah.
And got way drunk that night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's so awesome.
Yeah, and that was a fun. So seek out stuff like that and have
Right.
fun.
All right, folks, thanks for listening, and thanks for sticking around as long as you did on this one. We had a lot of good stuff. As usual, I just left it all in. And remember, folks, if you want to take part in helping out with the podcast, you can go to enormocast.com, click on the Help Out tab over there, and see what you can do. Mainly, of course, tell your friends. Actually, within climbing, there's a lot of people just discovering podcasts for the first time. I hear from them all the time. Like, wow, somebody just told me what a podcast was. And also discovering the Enormocast. So let everybody know if you like the show. So, folks, as the climbing season ramped up this spring in the U.S., we also, of course, saw the ramp up of some accidents, some tragedies, some fatalities. And, I like to go on and on about how wonderful and joyful climbing is, how inspirational it is. And that's all relatively true in that context. But, it's kind of shocking when one inattentive moment or one bad decision can turn it all very dark very quickly. So, with that in mind, I would love to be able to magically say just a few words that could prevent all of those accidents. But the best I can do is remind you to be attentive, be careful, double-check your systems, double-check each other, and, of course, check your knot.